Hey, how's it going? I'm John Masters, Executive Director of Grassroots Community Network, and I'm here with Paul Menter, who is on the board of Grassroots, but those titles have no influence over this program today because we're going to take an excellent adventure through the state ballot issues and help you. Yeah, it's huge. I'm sure you got this in the mail, and it's intimidating even.
Think of it as the intellectual alternative to Time magazine.
So
does Time magazine still exist?
I think in special editions.
Special edition?
Which is this is a special edition.
It is.
And so they did a great job, and if you have the time, read through this. Read through this. They did a really great job on a very neutral, well
objective, informative language. Very helpful.
That's the objective, informative language I was looking for. Okay, so we have 9 amendments to the Constitution and 5 propositions. And amendments, the way the Colorado Constitution works, and I think this is the way California does also, maybe other state constitutions, is that everything in the Constitution must be passed by the voters.
Supermajority of the voters.
Supermajority.
55%.
Right. So the legislature can't mess with the Constitution. Only the voters, only the citizens can change the Constitution. And but the legislature can present amendments to the voters to vote on, and the voters through citizen signatures can also present amendments to the voters. The way you know the difference is that the legislature, the ones that are coming out of the legislature, are letters. In this case, V through Z, and then A. Go figure.
It's simpler for them to understand, I think, if you just use a letter.
Okay, good. No, citizen-initiated amendments have numbers between 1 and 99. In this case, it's 73 through 75.
So 6 being forwarded by the legislature, 3 through citizen petition.
Correct. And then there's 5 propositions, and propositions change state statutes, but the legislature can go right back and change those statutes back or mess with them, change them,
amend them,
repeal
them.
Yeah,
repeal and replace.
Yes, whatever.
That's worked really well so far in other legislatures.
So the Constitution can be really long because it has all these different amendments that the citizens have voted on over the 100 and something years we've been a state. Okay, so we're going to go through, some of them are pretty simple, and you don't need a whole lot of explanation. Some of them are
mind-bending
gorillas that we will try to wrestle to the ground here.
In 2 minutes or less.
Okay. All right, so we're going to start with Amendment V. Paul, it lowers the age requirement to be a state legislature, be elected a state legislator from 25 to 21 years of age.
Yes. So I think, what this is telling us is that if you're old enough to drink, you're old enough to be elected to the legislature.
Right.
I think that's a great standard.
I think it's a good standard. I think if you're old enough to fight in a war, you should be able to also be a member.
Well, that's 18, so this is
18.
only 21.
So I think it should be 18. I think everything should be 18. As soon as you can be drafted, or I guess you can't be, we don't draft people anymore, but if you can go fight in a war, then you should be able to have some determination of what wars we fight in.
If you want to run. So,
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so simple enough, 25 to 21 on Colorado state legislators.
I think nobody younger than me should be on the legislature. I think it should all be old people. So.
Well, it's sort of pretty much what we got. So,
Well, okay. See, maybe that's why I'm so comfortable. I'm not comfortable with it actually. So maybe we should have some 21-year-olds.
I think 21.
You're changing my thinking.
I think 21-year-old women would be great.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, W.
Amendment W
changes the format of judicial retention elections. And it's sort of like right now it says, should this judge be retained or not? And what they want to change it to is a list of judges with yes, no.
Right. Grouped together rather than listed and enumerated separately.
Right. And to me, it was like, who cares? Okay, that one's easier, shorter. But it's interesting. The argument against that is that some people actually could be confused and think they need to vote for one of those judges or something that are on the list, that they're not,
Everything's a bit of an IQ test.
It is a bit of an IQ test. And I think if you're voting to retain judges, you need to be able to figure out well,
a lot of times I think
ballot.
people. I mean, you've got to know who the judges are. I mean, most people don't really have much information
No. So
innately.
The retention, basically, the retention of the judges. Anyway, the whole idea was that you end up with a bad judge. Everybody knows it, and you get rid of them.
You can get rid of them.
So
vote yes and save a little paper. Is my take on that one.
All right. Okay.
So that's what I think.
All right. But that's just your opinion.
I think voters are smart. It's my opinion. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
We're gonna have our opinions here.
Yeah.
Our opinion. You're gonna get some of our opinions.
How do you tell which
I'm
camera's
afraid.
on?
You can't. These are our new HD cameras. We're going with HD. You're probably, if you're watching online, you're watching in HD. If you're watching through the Pickens County Translator system, you're watching in HD. If you're watching on Comcast, you're not watching in HD.
Come on, Comcast.
But we are getting a HD channel real soon.
All right, thank you, Comcast.
Couple of months, and then if you tune into channel 12 and you have an HD box, it'll automatically switch it over to the
HD channel.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you like that soft focus,
Yeah.
which in this case might be a good thing,
Yes.
Go to the non-HD.
But we can't tell. We don't have tele lights anymore.
So that's really an oversight in the design.
Well, we could, but it costs money. So to make life easier for the folks on the set, so we know which camera we're looking at,
Yeah.
you can donate at grassrootstv.org. It's easy and fun.
How much those cost?
It's about a $3,000 upgrade to the whole system.
Okay.
So it's crazy. So that's why we don't have it.
Okay.
Okay. There's other things we could do with $3,000
Absolutely.
actually
Okay.
ahead of that.
All right.
So
I'll just look right here. It's kind of between the cameras.
we do need your contribution. If you appreciate these election programs, thanks to the thrift shop, we're able to present them to you for a grant from the thrift shop. But the thrift shop can't pay for grassroots, right?
Thank you, Aspen Thrift Shop.
They can't pay for everything. We need your help to help enable us to do everything else.
Okay.
Enough of the
Enough
commercial?
of the commercial.
Okay. X. W, right?
Yes.
Judicial retention.
Amendment X.
Election, okay. Removes the definition of industrial hemp in the Constitution. All of us don't know what difference it makes, right? But it apparently is going to make a difference when the federal government
Normalizes.
Yeah. Gets their act together. If we don't have a definition in the Constitution, it helps the hemp industry in Colorado.
This makes it the same as the federal law,
Yes.
and apparently the other states that have legalized hemp
Yes.
have the same definition as the federal law. So this gives Colorado the same definition.
Okay, so apparently it's a good thing. And Colorado is the largest industrial hemp producer in the United States.
All right.
So it's a big industry.
We got that going for us.
Yes. So let's help them out, I guess.
Okay.
Otherwise, it doesn't matter. Y, Amendment Y, creates an independent redistricting commission. This is a biggie.
Why don't we take Y and Z together?
Oh, Y and Z. Y and Z.
Yeah, take Y
okay,
and
so
Z
Y and Z are the same thing. Okay? If you're for it, vote for both of them. If you're against it, don't vote for both of them. Vote against both of them.
Yes.
Okay, so they're basically the same thing. We get into the history of that.
Basically
but
the same
doesn't
thing,
matter.
both forwarded by the legislature,
With
which
unanimous
makes
votes.
absolutely no sense. But that's your legislature at work, forwarding amendments that have exactly the same purpose
Well,
to the same ballot.
It's also interesting because it's taking power away from the legislature.
Yeah. Well, they recognize the populist wave. I think legislatures all over the country, maybe with the possible exception of the city of Aspen, the Aspen City Council, recognize the populist wave that we're going through right now, and so and I think they're reacting to that, whether you agree with that or not. You know, there are legitimate arguments on both sides of that issue.
Okay, so this depoliticizes in great detail. I mean, they really
Yes.
Achieved on their
really trying to depoliticize and eliminate the potential for gerrymandering.
And also very transparent.
Yeah.
Right now, the process is not real transparent. It's pretty good in Colorado, actually, compared to some other states. But still, this is completely transparent, and it creates a commission that is equally balanced between Republicans or the top two vote-getting parties, whoever they may be, and 4 independents. And they come from a pool of 1,000 people or something that are nominated and they're selected, and there's this whole selection process to make sure that it's non-political. And there's all kinds of checks and balances on it. And they're also trying to, this is, of course, non-gerrymandering is what it is. So, so another aspect of it is that they're trying to keep the congressional districts make some sort of sense geographically. So they go to county lines, or they keep communities contiguous within a district.
Yeah.
All kinds of good things.
Yeah, those are good changes.
Okay, so what's the problem with it?
The argument against it would be that it's fundamentally a political process, and so the political powers that be ought to be able to hash it out. It's not a great argument, but that's the argument against it, I think. I mean, it's interesting, when I went to graduate school at Indiana University in Bloomington, Indiana, and when I was there, I don't know what it's like now, but when I was there, Indiana's a conservative state. Bloomington was kind of a liberal haven, being a university town. This is back in the 80s. And the boundaries of 4 state congressional districts all landed right in the middle of Bloomington to divide the liberal vote, because it was completely gerrymandered. So, that's the kind of stuff that this is intended to keep from happening.
Right.
So it's a good thing.
So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I think an argument against it is that, well, this commission...
It's expensive. It's another expense.
Okay.
It's like $700,000 a year of additional spending.
Democracy's worth it.
You would think. So there's an argument about cost against it.
But there's also the argument that the commission is not elected, and therefore the voters have no control over who's on the commission.
Right.
And the whole idea of representative democracy is that, if you don't like the job your state senators and assemblymen are doing in creating the congressional districts,
vote them out.
Vote them out.
Right.
But we don't seem to do that. Of course, it's a single issue thing, and so
it's the immediacy versus the long term. I mean, in the long term, issues change. I mean, there was a time when the state of California voted for a Republican for president.
Yes.
A long time ago, but it was within our lifetimes, and it could happen again. Probably.
But of course, he was a Hollywood actor.
He was a Hollywood actor.
So.
But it was within our lifetimes.
That kind of Republican.
And he had been their governor.
Yes.
So he was, so Ronald Reagan, of course, we're talking.
Well, I was talking about the governor.
Oh, the gubernator?
Yes.
For governor, they voted.
Yes,
they voted for a Republican governor. Yes. Arnold Schwarzenegger. I was actually in Sacramento the night of the election.
Oh.
It was pretty interesting.
So that's 2 governors of California that are actors.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's not what we're talking about today.
No.
So why? Okay. So is there anything else about?
No.
No.
I think that's
Y'all
it.
get it? It's
Either vote for both. If you want the commissions, vote for both of them. If you don't want a commission, vote against both of them.
Gerrymandering is a big problem.
It is a big problem.
No matter really what party you support.
Yes.
It's a big problem. Okay, that's Y and Z. Next, A. And I guess it's A now because they've gone all the way through all the letters.
And they started it.
And we're starting over again with A. This is the slavery thing that we did in 2016 that didn't
pass.
Didn't get the 55%.
Got 52%.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
And so let's give it another shot and try to get slavery out of our Constitution.
And what it does basically is it changes the language on involuntary servitude and slavery, except in cases of conviction of a crime, which is the current language is very similar, if not exactly the same, as the 13th Amendment to the United States Constitution adopted in 1865, which all the states kind of mimicked, I think. So this would remove that language, and it should be removed. So.
And the reason we can consider convict slaves or indentured servants is because we don't want to pay them for
the work they do.
For the work inside the prison
Right.
that they do.
Mm-hmm.
Although they do get paid something, a little bit for something.
But I haven't spent enough time
Okay.
incarcerated
But I don't
to
think
know
they don't get paid for
how that works.
for cleaning up the place and
Right.
for doing the cooking and all that kind of stuff. Doing the laundry, they don't get paid.
No, but I mean,
They
it's
get
just
paid.
it's like good grief. It's not going to
like-
fundamentally change anything. Just get rid of it.
Okay, fine. Get rid of slavery.
Yes.
That seems to make sense.
I think it does.
It's time has come. Okay, now those are all the ones that the legislature have presented to the voters. Now these are all, next are the constitutional amendments that the citizens are presenting. 73 is an education tax to increase funding for K through 12 and preschool. And it's going to, that tax is a sales tax. Am I right?
It is a property tax.
No, it's a
state
property tax. Has to be a property tax.
It creates tax brackets in Colorado for the first time for a property tax. So the rates go up from 4.63%, and they start to bracket up at $150,000 in taxable income.
Right. So it's a progressive tax.
Yeah, it's a
and
progressive
anybody who
tax.
makes
More than $150,000 in taxable income
so it's
will
not
be impacted.
so it's not a property tax. It's an income tax.
It is an income tax.
It's an income tax.
Yes.
Right.
Did I say property tax?
You said property
I'm
tax.
sorry. Income
And I
tax.
said
Sales tax.
I said
So we were
sales tax.
completely
We're completely wrong.
wrong.
It is an income tax.
And it's the morning, and we haven't.
Only for people that make over 150,000, and it funds. It increases the funds per student in every school.
Mm-hmm.
It creates a fully funded kindergarten, which is a problem in
Big
Colorado.
problem in Colorado.
Okay, most kids only go 4, even sometimes 3 days a week. It helps relax the income requirements for low-income students to receive funding. It increases special education funding, increases gifted and talented funding for classes for both special education and gifted and talented, English language proficiency instruction, preschool, and have some left over to be determined by the state legislature.
Mm-hmm.
The tax only affects what appears to be about 8% of the taxpayers.
That's the estimate, and you have to have taxable income on your federal tax return of $150,000 or more. And it's important to, if you do your own internet research, which I did, initially when I did my research, this was not out yet, and there's some information on third-party sites out there that is inaccurate. So you want to be careful. No kidding. So there's some information out there that says that the average increase on someone who makes $500,000 a year would be a $42,000 increase in income tax, and it's not. It's about, for someone at that level, it's about $5,000. I think at $1 million of taxable income, it's about $20,000. So, I mean, it's 20 grand is real money, even if you make $1 million, but it's not nearly as much as they claim it, as is reported in some places. So,
Okay, the other thing is because of Gallagher, I think I got this right. Because of Gallagher, we have not been able to fund Colorado schools at the level of other states. Let's put it this way: the legislature has not been able to fund the schools at the level of other states because of the Gallagher amendment.
the combination of Gallagher and Tabor.
And Tabor.
Yeah, the limitations on revenue growth.
Right.
That then the ratchet down on revenue growth that Tabor provides for, and then the allocation between residential and all other properties that Gallagher provides, the combination of those two.
And so this balances the Gallagher thing a little bit in that it actually reduces the property taxes.
Well,
on
the one
commercial.
thing about this is that it does exempt itself from Tabor. So this amendment, it is an amendment to the Constitution that, if it's approved, revenue growth from this source is exempt from
So
Tabor.
it can continue to grow.
It can continue to grow.
And the tax brackets don't change, or they
No.
do. They don't change. So more and more people get ultimately as incomes rise.
As incomes rise.
You go into it.
In theory, yes. So it's two big new changes for Colorado. One is it's the first time we have tax brackets. It's been a flat tax, 4.63% forever, and now you're having brackets starting at 150,000 goes to 5%, and then it goes up from there to a maximum of 8% at $500,000, and it's indexed, so only the income over the amount that amount is taxed at the higher level. So you're not getting all of your income taxed at 8% if you make $500,000.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So so anyway, so it's a real effort to try and kind of turn the tide on educational funding in Colorado. It'll be interesting to see how it goes.
Well, this is an editorial comment.
Okay.
My kids went to public school and private schools. Daughter went to private high school. She went to a public university. Mm-hmm. My son went to a private university. They both came through a charter school. He went to a public high school. Okay, so we've had experience with all. This country was built on public education. It's essential to having an educated electorate that we have good public education. Mm-hmm. And Colorado is way behind on the curve, and the Taxpayer Bill of Rights basically said that the legislature can't raise taxes to do something like this, that it's up to the citizens to decide if they want to or not. Well, now's the time for us to make that decision, is do we want to fund our schools at an appropriate level? Mm-hmm. And I just don't even see the argument against it. I just don't even understand how you can be against public education. And, you can be for private education too, great, but, we need a good, strong public education system.
We need a good, strong public education system. The only argument that I was able to find, and that has any credence, I think, is the method rather than the intent. So how do we fix it? Do we fix it with a tax increase, or do we fix it by trying to figure out a way to reallocate existing revenues that are provided? Because like Aspen, for example, in terms of total per pupil spending, is well over the national average. Now that's because there are local taxes and there are other initiatives that the voters have taken in order to assist with that process, and that's true.
And the Aspen Education Foundation
and the Aspen Education Foundation,
and
and there are other ways. So the only argument I can see that holds any water is there's a lot of money going into the public education bucket now, and it needs to be more effectively and efficiently redistributed before we ask the voters to pay for more. That is the argument against everything that you just said. For our people,
okay.
for people to
Okay.
to consider, in my view, that's the only.
okay.
There are other arguments against it that they list here.
I think
I don't. They're not even worth talking about.
I think it's a lousy argument. Let's do both. Okay. So
Yeah.
let's do one or the other, and then the other.
Let's do something.
So let's do something.
Let's do something.
Something to help out Colorado education. All right. Okay. That's
Yeah.
and we end up with.
So
Yeah.
no, I mean we're trying to provide both sides for people.
Yes, we are. We are.
So
we are.
Yeah,
and
notwithstanding
so thank you.
notwithstanding your editorial comment,
That's
I'm just
right.
trying to be objective.
I agree. I agree that we
Trying
should, we're
objective as I can be with a straight
presenting-
face.
At Grassroots, we present not just both sides, but all sides.
All sides. Yes. Absolutely. Okay.
That's 73.
73.
Okay,
74.
74. State or local government must compensate private property owners if a law or regulation reduces the fair market value of their property. Now, right now, there's a taking
Statutory
law.
proposition.
Well, right now there's a law. There's a taking law. So if basically the government takes your property, then you get compensated.
Right. Under the definition of taking. This would basically elevate that to a constitutional level.
Well, and it also is incremental. It's if it decreases the value of your property at all, they need to compensate you.
Yeah. if
As
government
opposed
action
to
does.
saying we're taking your property and putting a highway through it.
Right.
Now it's and so why is this here, Paul? Why is 74 there?
Well, I think we need to take 74 in tandem with Proposition 112, which is a statutory proposition that was brought forth by a group of citizens to expand the setbacks around oil and gas development to protect the environment, essentially, and to protect homeowners. So it's this really interesting kind of offset where really both provisions are proposing to protect property owners, one environmentally and the other one financially, and they're at loggerheads with each other. So, all the governments are out against 74 because they believe it's very broadly written, it's very generally written, so it would take some case law to define it and narrow it down, and it's going to be expensive, and they don't want to deal with that. And I think that if you, I don't think it would be here if I don't think it would have been forwarded if Proposition 112 was not on the ballot.
Right. So what I'm getting from that is that the main people that are, if corporations are people, that are affected
Supreme Court thinks they are.
That are affected by government regulations are going to be large property owners. There aren't a whole lot of small property owners where government regulations all of a sudden, reduce the value of property. But there's one I'm thinking of locally, which is the Crystal River Trail.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that would be a government regulation. I don't know if that would go under this.
I don't know.
If you build a trail, the government builds a trail that goes through your property or down your street or something like that.
Is that a taking?
Is that a taking? And is it a regulation under this? I don't know.
I don't know either.
So
it's very generally written. It's intended to create the way it's written, in my view, is that it's intended to create kind of a chilling effect on Proposition 112. Is the way I read it.
And so basically, if you vote for this, you're kind of supporting the gas and oil industry.
It's interesting because you can do both, right? I mean, you could vote yes on both of those.
You could vote, but you say the government's against this, but the government is us.
Well, governments in general.
We are the government.
Well, the government bureaucracies and elected officials, everybody's out.
Those are the boogeymen. Those are the boogeymen, but we're the taxpayers that are going to pay for this.
Well, so there's costs on both sides of this, right? I mean, Proposition 112, if it reduces somebody's ability to use their property to extract oil and gas from their property, that reduces tax revenue, right?
Reduces tax revenue, but it makes it a cleaner state and a nicer place to live and attracts more.
In theory,
people.
in theory,
actually, increases the value. The whole point is it increases the value or restricts somebody from decreasing the value of my property by putting an oil rig, out my kitchen window.
Well, in Colorado, as you know, owning the mineral rights on your
Yes.
property is a big deal.
Yes.
If you do.
Actually, they could do it in my living room, frankly,
So
if they own the mineral rights.
so so I mean, so it's a complicated issue.
Yes.
I mean, my sense is, you're right. If you vote, typically you would think the people who voted yes on 112 to increase the setbacks and protect the environment
Yes.
would probably vote no on
Yes.
75 and
Yes.
vice versa, right?
Yes.
Because this would increase the cost of this.
Yes.
So, but I'm not sure. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how people vote. I mean, because in a sense, both are intended to protect the property owner and the taxpayer in their own way. So it's to me, it's an interesting, from very different perspectives. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes, I think.
Okay.
I mean, if it would be an interesting study to see how many people voted yes for both and no for both, or no for both.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know if you can do that, but
Yeah.
it would be really interesting to see.
You can.
So
You can do something. I guess that's just exit polling, isn't it?
yeah,
Yes.
exit polling.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess you could do that with, which is, we've seen how accurate those can
Yeah,
be.
that doesn't work.
Okay.
Okay, so that wasn't so bad.
Yeah.
75 raises campaign contribution limits 5 times if one candidate contributes or loans their campaign or their committee $1 million, which means that, right now Colorado has limits it's like 1,000, I don't know, 1,500, 1,200, something like that, 1,400
Uh-huh.
for the governor. So the most you can contribute to a gubernatorial candidate is $1,400, whatever it is.
Okay.
This would, if that person's opponent put $1 million into their own campaign, then that limit is multiplied by 5. So it all of a sudden becomes, whatever it is, $5,000 or $6,000
Right.
becomes the limit that individuals can
Raise.
contribute
Right.
to any candidate, as long as there's one candidate in the race that has given themselves $1 million,
Right.
or loaned themselves $1 million.
So the idea there is it neutralizes individual wealth, potentially neutralizes. I mean, there's no guarantee that you're going to be able to give yourself or raise that much money, right? But
Yes.
In theory, it neutralizes it's intended to neutralize that and create a level playing field.
Intention is such an important word in all of these.
Yes.
There's an intention, and then there's all the consequences
Right.
that unforeseen that are just waiting to pounce on all of these issues.
Yes.
The moment they're passed. But so a lot of them have really good intentions. I still think we should probably get rid of slavery, though.
Can we all agree on that?
The downside of that, I just don't see it. Okay, so anyway, Proposition 109. That was Proposition 75. Oh, no, that was Amendment 75. That was an amendment. Everybody understand that one? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Propositions. Now, these can be changed by the state legislature.
These are statutory.
These are statutory if they feel like it.
Right.
109 authorizes highway bonds. It actually requires mandates. It says authorize in the explanation, but it actually mandates
$3.5 billion.
the state borrows $3.5 billion, and how are they going to repay?
From it's the abracadabra method, I think, on this one. This one's the abracadabra method.
Because they have to repay it without raising taxes.
Without raising taxes. So this is called the Fix Our Roads proposition, right, is what they call it. And they've got a list of projects.
Yes, 66 projects.
66 projects.
None of which are in Pickens County.
Right. Yeah.
There is something in Garfield County. There's like the I-70 off-ramp to Newcastle, something.
Something.
On the Rifle. What's the road going out of Rifle?
13.
13.
Highway 13.
So Highway 13, fixing something up there.
Okay.
That's as close as the money gets to us.
Okay.
Right.
So, and I mean, and the one question I think voters have to ask themselves is there anything more dangerous than giving elected officials the right to spend money that doesn't exist? And, and I think most of the elected officials, in fact, on this one would say this is stupid.
Okay.
So, but that's the question.
Well,
I
they'll
think
probably
people
win by a
have to ask.
landslide then.
So probably. So there's nothing like getting something for nothing, and that's kind of what this is proposing. It's proposing that unlike the federal government, the state government doesn't have a treasury, can't print money, can't go into debt and pay back bonds with money that they didn't raise from out of somebody's pocket. So you have to take it from some other program, some other. So if you believe that the government is so inefficient that they can find $5.2 billion to repay $3.5 billion in bonds from existing revenue sources. If you believe that, then this is your proposition.
And you want more highways.
And you want more highways. You think that expanding highways is the answer as we move into the age of the cloud and the internet and driverless cars and all that.
Multimodal transportation.
Multimodal transportation. If that's what you think the answer is, this is your deal.
Okay, so that sounds so good. 110 increases. Now, this one funds transportation bonds, not highway bonds, although highways are part of it, but it's transportation, including 40% of the funding goes to local governments for local projects, 15% goes to multimodal transportation, and it is actually what the proposition is to increase sales and use taxes to fund those bonds.
Right. Right. So it's an increase in taxes. And
state sales tax.
State sales tax and the ability to increase debt $6 billion. And this is more of a conventional, traditional ballot measure. It's a tax increase where they take the money and they spread it around to try and gain support from everybody in order to garner support to get it approved. And it does not enumerate a specific plan.
So doesn't have projects.
Doesn't have projects.
No.
So projects are not identified.
Mm-hmm.
And so
it's just giving CDOT a bunch more money and paying for it with a sales tax.
Right. That's basically what it is. So
okay.
And it increases the state sales tax from 2.9 to 3.52%.
Which is a pretty substantial.
It's pretty, 0.6%. That's a 10% increase almost.
Yeah, and that will affect, of course, places that have very high sales taxes like Aspen and Snowmass Village. Right. It's going to add half a percent.
Yep, it adds quite a bit on. So anyway, I mean, again, it's there are lots of creative and ways to manage transportation, and if $6 billion is your idea of the way to do it and to spread the money around, have at it.
Okay, we're getting close here.
Tax increase.
We're getting closer here.
Almost.
Two more.
Getting to the end.
111, limitations on payday loans. Right now, payday loans, I don't know if any of you folks out there are taking payday loans.
Don't ever take a payday
Don't
loan.
ever do it. Bad juju.
Juju.
Do not do that. Just save your money. Don't eat for a few days if that's what it means.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you won't eat later. Because
if you can avoid it at all, at any cost at all, avoid it.
Right now it's 45% interest. The average APR, after all the fees and everything, the average APR in Colorado, that's annual percentage rate on payday loans, the average in Colorado right now is 129%. Mm-hmm.
Because you've got actually three different charges. They can charge interest at 45%, a finance charge. I have a degree in finance. I have a master's degree in finance. Somebody please explain to me the difference between an interest rate and a finance charge. Okay, please explain that to me. And 700, and then there's a flat $7.50 fee on every $100 loaned every 30 days. So these are clearly loans that if you do take them out, you want to pay them back like in 3 days.
It should be a payday loan. It's like I need money. I'm getting paid on Friday,
It's
and
thir-
it's Wednesday.
It's Wednesday, and I have to pay my rent.
Right.
So I need the money now, and I'll pay it back
Right.
on. That's the
Right.
only way you ever want to do one of these. So, and then you want to stop doing them as soon as you develop discipline yourself financially to get out of that, because it can become a real debt spiral. So what this does is,
Okay, so it lowers the interest rate to 36%, so it's not so usurious.
right.
But Paul has an interesting theory on that. It seems like a good thing, is that we're trying to protect people that do take payday loans from having to pay so much.
My fear, and I wasn't able to find any analysis or research on this, but my fear is just using this as a financial or an economic issue. So applying the principles of supply and demand, if you reduce the price of something, the demand for it is going to go up. So this dramatically reduces the price of payday loans, and I think that there's a high likelihood you'll see a lot more people take advantage of these, decide they want to take advantage of these because the price has gone down so much. And it's still usurious. It's still 36%. It's still higher than credit cards, so it's still a very high charge. And my concern is that this could actually increase the number of people who take advantage of this, extend those loans for periods of time, and get into a longer-term debt spiral. Now the debt they're being charged, the interest they're being charged is a lot less, but if there's more people taking advantage of it or using it to their detriment, not using it correctly, then I think there's a chance that this could actually create a different kind of a problem. Have a higher number of people that are using these rather than a lower number of people that are using them. So but again, I couldn't find any research on that or any examples from other states in the 10 minutes worth of research I tried to do.
The real solution is don't do business with these guys.
The real solution is don't do payday loans.
Yeah, don't do payday loans.
So I think that's the real solution.
Yeah, so hard to say. This seems like a little bit better thing, but Paul could be right. Could just, but how much do we protect? Idiots,
I think there's arguments on both sides on this one, and I wouldn't.
I don't want to say idiots, because there's some people that just simply don't make enough money, and they got themselves into a trap. That this is just quicksand, though.
Right, it is. It is absolutely quicksand, and you don't want to play in this sandbox unless you have no other choices.
Right. So I guess it's good that it's an option for people.
Right.
It's a bad option, though.
It's not. It's a last resort.
Okay, 112. Whew. This is the last one.
Last one.
Proposition 112. It increases the setback for oil and gas development. It's a requirement on new oil and gas development. And so it has to be located 2,500 feet from occupied structures, water sources, and vulnerable areas.
Yeah, environmentally vulnerable areas,
okay.
I'm assuming.
Okay, I don't know who determines that. It does not apply to federal land, which is 36% of the state of Colorado. Now, the argument against it says it will tie up. Basically, if you go 2,500 feet from all occupied structures and water sources in the state of Colorado, it basically removes 85% of the private property in Colorado. From development,
from oil and gas development. Yeah,
yes.
So that's the argument against. That's 72 acres, apparently. A circle 2,500 feet in diameter is 72 acres. And so that's a lot of property. And we talked about this a little bit when we were looking at 74, 75, because this is the offset. No, 74, the just compensation amendment.
Yes.
This is the offset. We talked a little bit about this, but the specifics are important, I think, for people to understand on this one. And so it's a lot of land. And it is for people who live in rural areas who bought their property with the anticipation that they could take advantage of the mineral rights, and the price they paid expected that.
How about people that just had no clue? I mean, that's their fault, I guess, that they didn't own.
That's 90% of the people.
Okay, so they didn't know they didn't own the mineral rights. To their land, or they do own the mineral rights to their land.
Well, that's the beauty about the law. You're protected if you're ignorant or not. right? Isn't
This
that the beauty
law.
of the law?
This law.
Well, any law.
Oh, any law. Yes.
You know, I mean,
Okay,
you're
the
you're
law.
afforded
The capital L
yeah,
law.
the capital L. I mean, that's the beauty of the you're afforded under our system. You're in theory you have protections whether you know you do or not.
So-
But ignorance of the law is also no excuse.
Okay,
Right?
okay, but
So it
this
goes
is
past both
primarily
ways.
protecting people who either didn't know they didn't own the mineral rights or don't have any option because the mineral rights in Colorado were bought up a long time ago. Is that generally true? I mean,
That could be true.
it seems like, I mean, I bought a piece of property in Pickens County. I'm ignorant.
Don't mineral rights change hands? Isn't there a market for those? People buy and sell those like they do other things?
Sure.
So
But
you
the-
say they were bought up.
Well, but
Well,
they're
they're available.
But when you buy a piece of property, you think you own that property to the center of the earth.
You don't necessarily though in Colorado, right?
Right.
So I mean, you need to know, and you need to be smart enough, or have good enough
I
representation.
wasn't smart enough. I still don't. I'm still not smart enough. I don't know if I own the mineral rights underneath my house.
Probably don't.
I'm guessing I don't.
You probably
because
don't.
I'm up the Crystal Valley and it was all divvied up a long time
Right.
ago.
Yep. So you probably don't.
I probably don't.
Yeah.
But fortunately, it's just a bunch of rotting sandstone, so
So you never know.
I don't think there's anything there.
Probably not. Probably not. But.
I'm on the right side.
But
of
anyway,
the valley.
but the issue here, I think, is that that this creates a really big setback, and it really takes the majority of privately owned property out of potential production. Is the argument against it,
It could
and
be-
also
it
the
could be
argument for it.
Yes.
You know, is that a good thing or is that a bad
Yes.
thing? So voters have to decide for themselves.
If you're a true blue environmentalist, then that's a great thing.
Yeah, and you need to consider the impact, and obviously that how you feel about that is going to inform you about how you're going to vote on Amendment 74.
This does not have anything to do with. It only applies to future gas and oil development.
Right.
So it's not hurting current day oil.
Right. Existing
Existing wells.
Existing wells won't have to be removed.
Right.
As a result, if this is passed.
Right.
So.
Okay. So,
Okay.
if you want to keep the water clean and you want to keep the oil rigs from, away from your kids' swing set, probably want to vote for this. And away from schools and public
Yeah.
buildings and streams and everything. So it seems, I think the question is 2,500 feet.
Yeah.
Because right now it's 500 feet.
500 feet right now. So it's a big increase. It's half a mile almost.
Is that half a mile? 2,500 feet.
5,280 feet is a mile, so it's almost half a mile.
Wow.
You know.
Okay, so this is pretty aggressive.
So it's significant. It's a big change.
Yeah. All right.
Very good.
Okay.
All right.
I think we got through it all.
I think we got through all the state
That was-
elections. Is
and-
anybody still awake out there?
I don't know. If anybody's still watching, thanks a lot.
Thank you. Yes.
And thanks to the thrift shop of Aspen. You see, when you donate to the thrift shop, you donate the stuff you don't need, that's high quality stuff you don't need to the thrift shop, and then or you go buy stuff from the thrift shop whenever you're in Aspen. Stop by a thrift shop, see if there's some cool clothing or other household items that you might need at a really good price. Then they're able to pass that on to Grassroots and like 110 or something other nonprofits.
Yeah, they do incredible work. For a long time, they've done
And
incredible
everyone
work.
there's a volunteer, and we sure appreciate them
Yes.
supporting our election information programming, and we couldn't do it without them. So thanks.
Our excellent
so we couldn't do
adventure.
it without you either.
Our excellent, with that, our excellent adventure comes to an end.
It is. It was an excellent adventure. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, John.
Okay, and make sure you vote.
Make sure you vote.
That's the important thing.
Yes, it is.